All right. Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Up Your Brave live stream. So today is a very exciting day. We're going to be doing mindfulness. We're going to be doing self-love. I love this topic so much. I am so bad at mindfulness. I am so good at self-love. So this will be really interesting to dive into. So today I've got three amazing guests joining me. We've got my beautiful friend Kamni, who I've known for many, many years. Kamni's over in Blenheim. Hi, Kamni. We've got Brian, who is amazing with mindfulness. I'm so excited for him to share some of his insights and tips today. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Nat, how are you?
I'm so good. And hey, Sarah, we've got Sarah Menlove, who you might have seen. I've interviewed her before on my Up Your Brave Impact Entrepreneur series that we did last year, all the way from Tauranga, I believe. Hey, Sarah.
Yeah, hi, Nat. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you guys here. So thank you for those of you who are joining us today. If you're watching us live or on the live stream, as always, we love to know where you are geographically, where you're coming in from. And we will be asking a few questions along the way. So one of the questions I'd love to ask is, what is one of your daily habits or rituals to help you to stay mindful? So maybe you can comment in the chat with that. All right, we're going to go to Kamni, our first guest. So Kamni, I'm going to read a little bit of backstory on you, and then I'll get you to elaborate and share your very first tip with us. So Kamni Russell Raju is a collaborator, a networker, a bra fit body empowerment specialist, the creator of Babe, which is you can tell us what that stands for, BABE in business, and mother of three gorgeous, lovely girls. She has traveled the highs and lows of life in business and body and self-love, and she shares her insights with us today. Kamni lives in Blenheim, as I mentioned, but was born in Fiji and grew up in Tonga. So very interesting journey that you've traveled. Kamni will be sharing with us how she created self-love for herself to create better experiences in her life, business, marriage, and parenting. Yay, very exciting. So Kamni, it's so great to have you here. If you can start off, if there's a little bit more that you want to add to that, go ahead, and then diving into your very first tip for how people can be more mindful or have more self-love in their life.
Thank you so much for that, Nat. Wow, that's an amazing intro. Thank you again. So, in case you haven't noticed, I am Indian, and therefore, for an Indian woman, there is nothing called self-love. It's always giving to others. And growing up, until I was 12 in Fiji, I always struggled because I wanted to put myself first. I was always taught to put others first. Put the dog before me, put the neighbor's cat before me, and that caused a lot of struggle. And then when I turned 12, we moved to Tonga, which is another amazing culture of putting other people ahead of yourself. So you put the whole village and the village animals before you. So can you see the struggles I went through with self-love? And to find me and find that balance, and that was really, really hard. And I was constantly told that I should be like the other girl next door who was always going to, always giving, always standing up, and putting her hand up to do things. But little did people know that there were voices behind that other girl too that was dictating her where to go. And I don't think she had any self-love, that she didn't have more or less self-love than I at that moment in time. And the struggle went on until I had my first child, and she was a girl. And I thought, oh my goodness, I need to change some things here. And really need to do it quickly within my own self. And when I started creating that self-love, I had to find out what the hell it meant. It's such a broad subject. What is self-love? So I started writing little bullet points and saying, okay, self-love to me is actually liking myself. waking up in the mirror and waking up, looking in the mirror and actually saying, oh, hello, you, that's a nice face you've got on your head, and things like that. So, so I started getting into those rituals in the mirror. Hey, glad you're awake and ready this morning. Another thing I started doing was asking myself whether, what I was doing was my own thoughts, or was it some other person sitting on my shoulder dictating? Because that's a big one for anyone struggling with self-love. And I found that 75% of it was someone else's thought. And I had to basically just smash that little person sitting on my shoulder dictating, saying, "Oh, go away." Thank you, that, yeah. And I've written down some notes here about self-love. So love, I had to find out, was also a noun. So it's actions I do for my own self that tells me about love for myself. And one of the biggest things I struggled with was sitting down and having a cup of tea, having a family, young children. So sitting down, having that cup of tea was always on the go. By the time I finished a cup of tea, it was ice cold. And I think a lot of mothers can relate to that. That started turning that around and letting everybody know that I'm going and having my cup of tea. So that was my 5 minutes of self-love, enjoying that cup of tea, enjoying that peace and quiet. But it also came from, now this is something you elaborate on quite a lot, about saying what you want. Doing, it's been a positive shoulder that, I
Kamini, I'm gonna jump in and stop you there. It's a little bit glitchy, but we're totally getting the gist of what you're saying. I think you're so right about the cup of tea. And there's a big difference between being, I want to have a cup of tea when it's hot, rather than if it gets to the point where it comes from where's my, a place of negativity and bitterness. So it's an empowered choice. So wow, so many interesting things in your story and your journey, with the cultural aspect of it, of course, which I'm sure many people will be able to relate to, and some people might never have even thought of it like that before. So thank you so much to Emma Blackburn. She says she stays mindful by stretching. We've also got Sunny Britton Sink joining us today. So we're going to go to you, Brian. I'm excited to learn a little bit more. I mean, I know that you and I have met a number of times, but I always want to learn more about exactly what it is that you do. You're always so calm, always so centered. I know that is, of course, your what you do and how you help people. It is who you are as well. It really runs through you, and it's so evident. So let me read a little bit of a backstory on Brian for you guys, and then I'll let him share his wisdom with us. So Brian is a wellness coach and facilitator who has helped hundreds of people around the world lead more balanced and meaningful lives. With a background in neuroscience and more than 15 years experience teaching and practicing yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and different healing modalities, Brian is able to synthesize modern scientific knowledge with ancient wisdom to help his clients get the results they desire. Versed in various techniques, including mindfulness meditation, Tibetan yoga, Reiki, crystals, and sound healing. He's taught hundreds of workshops around the world. I know, Brian, the last time I saw you was actually at Nikki's event. I think it was the Spirit Festival. And then Nikki was our guest. If you guys missed that episode, we did the topic, Keeping the Love Alive. And she was one of my very 3 animated guests. We spent a lot of time talking about the bedroom, which is no surprise. And so definitely check out that episode if you haven't seen it. So Brian, I know that you're committed to conscious lifestyle practices. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're up to with the conscious action movement. So I'll hand over to you to elaborate on your backstory and share one of your insights with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nat, for having me here and for putting this together. Just the first thing always is I'm originally from Argentina, so my accent, that's always something that people ask me, especially because my name is Brian, so that people don't realize where I'm from. One of the biggest things for me has been that, and I think that this touches on both the mindfulness aspect and the self-love aspect is that I wanted to find out more about myself. I wanted to learn more about myself. And this is what took me on my journey that I'm still going, but that started many, many years ago because of my parents. Like, I've been blessed enough to have amazing parents that they were on their own journey, and they would just say, do you want to try this out? Do you want to try this out? And I would always say yes. And some things resonated with me, some things didn't. And the more that I started practicing, the more that I started noticing that my life, that was until the time that I was like 12, 13, was like a typical kid. It was watching TV, playing sports, caring about a lot of the things that like a kid cares about. And then I started noticing, like, okay, there's a whole different world out there. But actually, that whole different world that is out there was inside of me. And that was, for me, a magical realization, and something that since that moment I've been exploring. And I've been exploring it with different ways, but one of the biggest things for me was learning about the world of energy. So when I learned about energy, I learned about it both from a logical standpoint, but as well the experiential standpoint. And this is where, for me, this entire journey and these mindfulness practices and everything that we do for ourselves, this is opening our perspective. And this is my tip my first tip in this conversation is opening our perspective, widening to ask ourselves, what else is there? What else is possible? Because when I started noticing about energy in my everyday experience, and also from a scientific standpoint, that everything is energy from one perspective, but I wasn't experiencing that. So then in my everyday experience, energy wasn't there. I was just, this body, I'm talking with people, like there's a wall behind me, there's this computer in front of me, there's these physical things. So how can I actually experience them as something different when I'm not even looking for that difference? So this is for me one of the biggest things in terms of being able to start on our journey to be more mindful, to have more self-love, to be more balanced, to be more calm, or to even go towards the places where we want to go, has to do with, first, we need to have that openness. If I'm not open, most likely I'm going to resist all of these different things, especially if it comes from labels that are not something that my culture or my family is used to. So anything that is spiritual, if my family is not open to that, then I'm not going to look into that because there's this wall there. So can I open up and see things from a different perspective? And that is where we enter the world of possibility. And from there is where we start stepping into living a little bit more conscious and more mindful. We need that openness and seeking something that is different, because if not, then we are stuck in our ways. So for me, that was the first step, like starting to explore what else was possible outside and inside. On the inside world, it was a lot of practices. And on the outside world, I started living and traveling around the world and living in different places, different cultures. I lived for a few years at a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center. That for me was what really made my experience like a 24/7 thing. Like before, I was able to do a meditation practice or a yoga practice, and that was cool. But I wasn't able to live it every single moment. And when I was living there, and I lived there for a few years, that really got me into, okay, now I can live this all of the time. And this is a little bit what I I share with the people that I work with, and I share in a lot of the events and gatherings that I create with conscious action as well. And seeing things from different perspectives, seeing things from there's the physical perspective, connections, interactions, and how does living more consciously also affect my everyday life, my choices, what I do with what I buy, what I put into my body, what I'm doing for work. So the more that I understood myself, the more that also I was able to start stepping into the place that was meant for me and not living someone else's life.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting because from what Kamini said when she talked about really thinking, whose thought is this? And then when you talk about opening up and looking at things from a different perspective, and particularly now, whether people are watching this currently or in many months' time, now I feel like is a time of transition, obviously on a global scale, but a lot of people are going to be reconnecting or rethinking how they do spend, hopefully not just their money, but their valuable time, right? Their valuable energy. They don't have to just revert back to how they were. If they want to be more mindful, then they can incorporate some of those practices into their life. Like my husband is home today. Thank goodness. I had some tech problems. He was helping me, but he was like, I don't want to go back to work 5 days a week in the office. I don't need to. And I think a lot of people are going to be making these empowered choices and seeing what their life could look like, maybe from a different perspective. So thank you so much for that. I know that we had a comment from Christabel. She was saying that she knew your parents and they were very inspirational, just like you. We'll go to Sarah. So Sarah, let me read a little bit about you. So Sarah is a certified holistic health and mastery level transformation coach, specializing in intuitive eating and body image. She helps women from all walks of life break free from body shame, restrictive eating, guilt, and negative self-talk so they can find freedom in their bodies and their lives. Oh, Sarah, this is such a great topic. I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people, whether they personally have lived through something like that. Everyone knows someone, I think, who has lived through a challenge like that. So I'll leave it to you to maybe elaborate a little bit more about your background and tell us about your sporting prowess, and then to share a tip with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nat. I think it is important to go back because I certainly haven't always been the most self-loving, body-loving, body-accepting version of myself that I am today. And I sort of was reflecting on what part of my long story I wanted to share. And I wanted to go back to about 4 years ago, which is where my journey to self-love, which is still evolving always, where it began. And that was the day that I walked into a sports doctor's office and found out that I had a stress fracture and that I wouldn't be able to go to the World Champs event that I'd been training for the last year or so. So I was a New Zealand age group rep triathlete, personal trainer, really, really heavily focused on physical health in the form of exercise and watching what I was eating, and within all of that, basically managing my body, controlling my body and my size. And that led to that day when I walked into that sports doctor's office and that diagnosis of a stress fracture, but also prior to that, having not had a period for 4 years, but ignoring the signs that my body was giving me that the way that I was living wasn't as healthy as I maybe thought it was. So that day kind of led to, I suppose, what generally happens with the process of transformation, a breakdown, a feeling of like, who am I? What am I going to do? What do I have to offer? And this fear, of not being able to train, of my body changing, and then going through that process of actually allowing that to happen and having all of my body fears come to the light and working through that, which really, really gratefully led me to my own coach, my own journey of self-discovery of who I was outside of the sporting world and of who I was outside of my body and these ideals or these as an athlete and a woman, of what I felt like I needed to look like and maintain. So that's where it all began for me to kind of learn about body acceptance and intuitive eating and how we can build this healthy relationship, not only with our outer bodies, but with ourselves on a deeper level. So yeah, I wanted to share a couple of tips because, you know, self-love for a lot of people that I talk to feels like this really far away concept and something that's like, what even is that? Like bubble baths or massages or these sort of external things, which, like, loving what Brian was sharing around self-awareness and actually that deeper, those more foundational parts of ourselves that we can build. And so the first one for me is self-compassion, and really being able to be with ourselves, be with our experiences, be with our feelings from this place of compassion. And that meaning, like, acknowledging ourselves, acknowledging our pain, acknowledging our feelings when they arise, and being with them, right, and validating them, rather than minimizing them or comparing them to someone else or judging ourselves for having them. And I think, you know, for me, that's something that it's a practice. I really have to practice that. And when I was going through my own body journey, that was something that I felt really, really challenging for me, was to be able to feel things that normally I would go for a run, or I would monitor and control what I was eating, or I would be busy, or, you know, and I would avoid a lot. And so that's something that, yeah, at this time I feel like has probably come up for people as well. When we don't have quite as many distractions, we can really notice what's going on inside of us with our feelings, with our thoughts. And so self-compassion is a really powerful practice that we can use in that situation. And with that comes speaking to yourself and treating yourself as you would, you know, someone that you love, someone that you care about. And we have so many people in our lives that we show up in that way for. I notice myself doing it, you know, I'm like, oh, that was like, you treated that person really nicely. And how can we actually do that, you know, for ourselves as well? Like, as if we were speaking to a small child or to someone that we're tending to our own hearts, you know, sort of like, oh, that's painful. I hear you, you know, you're not alone. So that's my first tip.
You brought up so many good things there. I mean, number one is what is self-love? A lot of people think it is that pampering. You know, we think getting your nails done, getting your hair done. I know a lot of people are going out and doing these things this week. But like you said, that is external. And that is, for some people, a nice way to take time for yourself. So we would call that me time or pampering, and that's fine. But that, again, is not exactly what self-love is. And I agree with you. In my mind, I thought, what is self-love? Because I think some people might think, oh, self-love is like, you think you're so great, which I would hope that everyone would think that they were so great. Personally, that's the wish that I would have for everybody. But I think you're right. It is that internal dialogue. It's being kind to yourself in your own mind. And that it has really nothing to do with pampering, but that is a way that you can, you know, be more peaceful and be more present, definitely. So that's such a great distinction. I mean, Brian or Kamini, before we move on to the next tip, did you want to comment on anything that's kind of come up around compassion or self-love?
I think I've got something. One of the things I learned in my life that, I wasn't doing for myself was I wasn't trusting myself. So self-love comes with a lot of trust, self-trust, trusting yourself to make that mistake and saying it's all right. It's actually a learning curve. It's, trusting. And another one is self-respect. You give yourself the same respect that you give your best friend or your husband or your mom or your dad. A lot of the times we struggle with that. We have it, but it's our born right to be trusting ourselves and respecting ourselves just the way as we would do for someone else.
Exactly. Thank you. That actually
yeah.
leads nicely into my tip number one. So my tip number one,
What do you think, Brian?
It's quite echoey. One of the things I mentioned at the start of this call was I got people to comment with a habit or a daily ritual that they do for themselves. So one thing that I do that I've shared a few times before is I literally wake up and I'll say either in my mind or out loud, usually in my mind. Sometimes I'll say it out loud. Hello, beautiful day. Hello, beautiful body. And I literally say that. And part of that really is acknowledging the day, rain or shine. Like I come from Canada, we used to have days that like the weather was not gorgeous in the winter, but I would, hello, beautiful day. It's not about the weather. Hello, beautiful day, like embracing the fact that you have one a day, hello, beautiful body. And I'm not even looking in the mirror. I could be, don't have to be. I'm lying in bed in my jammies with my hair everywhere. But it's like, it's real. I think for me, it's just taking a moment of gratitude and appreciation. So I have a little bit of a backstory of back injuries, which is interesting. And I know back injuries are about trying to support everyone else and those types of things. But so for me, even the fact that I can walk for 5 minutes is awesome. Like when my kids were little, when my little guy was tiny, when we came here after the earthquake, I couldn't even walk 5 houses down to the next house to take my child to kindergarten. So it's when you've been through a body challenge, I feel, and Sarah, your body challenge is different, and Brian and Kamini probably have one too. But when you've been through a body challenge, and mine was mobility, it's like, even just being able to walk, like I'm so grateful for that it's not even about like beauty and thinness. It's for me, it's a lot of it is about mobility and being able to be as mobile, not as mobile as I used to be, because I used to do rock climbing and kayaking and all those things. But I think when you've been through a body challenge and you've come through it, you see things differently. And I think that goes back to what Brian said about perspective. So that's my daily routine, my ritual. I don't do it every day, but hello, beautiful day, hello, beautiful body is so easy to do, but it's taking a moment to acknowledge, to be grateful. And it just puts me into a positive space. Whereas other people maybe would wake up and judge themselves about how they might look or how the weather is so crappy or whatever. So I hope that helps. Emma, thank you so much. BJ Fogg, in his book, Tiny Habits, advocates the same, making it a tiny habit to take that moment to put yourself in a positive mindset. Yes. All right, Kamini, let's go to you for your tip number 2.
Your self-love is your responsibility. So basically means that to love yourself, to respect yourself, to trust yourself is really your responsibility. So go with it, or you may end up being that miserable person looking at yourself in the mirror and just saying to yourself, oh, I don't like you. And that also comes with liking yourself. So when you say you see yourself, when I look at myself in the mirror, despite my flaws, I see my courage, I see my self-trust, and to me, that's enough.
Yay!
So
and you
make
probably
it your
see your journey as
responsibility,
well.
because
Nice.
it is
I
your
love that.
responsibility.
Great.
Oh,
Thank
yes.
you so much. For those of you wanting to take notes, because I always take like scribbly little notes on the side. But what I do eventually is I actually have a beautiful partner who helps me, my friend Jo Davenport. She helps me re-listen to the audio. We make some show notes. We include some links. So if you're thinking you're getting some gold in here, you definitely are. And we will be sure to include as much as we can in the show notes as well. All right, let's go to Brian for his second insight.
Cool. I think that, and this is a little bit like I wanted to touch on what we've been talking about. The second tip that I had was doing things differently. So you mentioned before, Nat, that you wake up and you actually say that in your head or in like out loud. That what you're doing in a sense is you're putting out the vibration and the energy of what you want to create. This when we understand that we are creatures of habit and we're going to have the same patterns of energy, of emotions, and of thoughts as long as we keep on repeating and reliving them. So what can you do differently? And I always tell everyone, start small. Make something different. If you wake up and go to brush your teeth, if you do that with your right hand, start doing it with your left hand. It's as easy as that to start creating a new neural pathway, to start creating the change inside of you. With a lot of the practices that I do, and I use a lot of Tibetan yoga and a lot of conscious movement, I do things differently. So if, let's say that I would move my shoulders like this, can I do it like slightly different than what I would normally do? Perhaps it's a little bit bigger or a little bit slower, like just find something that I can do every single time that is different. If you are at home now, or if you are going to work, most likely you're taking the same route to go to work. Take a different route. How many times that I come to the office, like I take a different route, whether that is just going one block more or one block less, to do something different. And what I'm doing is I am creating, in my experience, something new. I don't know. I don't know what the houses look like. I don't know what the people on that street are like. If I am doing something that is different like that, I am not creating more and more habits, which means that then I am more malleable and I am more flexible. And when I have that, that starts to transpire into every single part of my life. That starts to change my thoughts, that starts to change my energy, and that starts to change my emotions as well. So if I am able to change a few things outside, I'm going to start noticing how that starts to change inside. And for me, that is way easier than to tell someone, okay, let's sit for half an hour, close your eyes, and meditate. Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear that, because remember at the start of this, I said, I'm really bad at mindfulness and I'm amazing at self-love. Well, I'm not very good at sitting quietly and thinking and the classic version of what we think mindfulness is. However, what you said there, I'm like feeling quite good, because maybe I thought it was just my personality because I like new and different, bright, shiny, but I will always choose to go new route, new way, new restaurant, new idea. I'm very opinionated and I'm very strong with what I believe, but I'm also actually very open to new ideas, new perspectives, constant learning, growth mindset. I don't know if so do you think I'm actually being mindful because I'm not going on to autopilot, just going the same route every day? It's with intention to go on a bit of a journey.
Well,
maybe I'm a little bit more mindful than I thought.
That of course depends. I mean, for me, this is one of the things that I talk about. We have a lot of preconceptions of what mindfulness or meditation is, and that is also on our way. So that doesn't mean that if I am doing things differently, that I am being mindful, because perhaps all of that time, even though I'm doing things differently, I am like having different thoughts all the time, and I'm not really present on anything that I'm doing. What I try to encourage people is to find what is their way of becoming more present and more mindful. And when we do things on autopilot, it's hard to get to that place of being more and more aware, because our body already knows that. That's why like some people go from the office back home driving, and then they are like, how did I get here? Because your body already knows the route, that it knows how to drive, it knows a lot of different things that you're not in that moment at all mindful or aware. So getting to that balance of doing things differently, but as well staying present with that.
Yes, I understand. All right, Sarah, let's go to you for your next tip.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. I love that. I love that presence and being able to kind of be in the moment. So powerful. So my next tip is another kind of foundational self that I was thinking about, that kind of, is that foundation to self-love. And even, I don't know, it was so more powerful to me in a way is self-worth. And when we are deeply connected to our internal inherent self-worth, then everything that we do outside of us, the practices that we do are going to be loving and caring towards ourselves, because we know and we feel that we are worthy and deserving of, whether it's going after what we want in our lives, going after the relationships that we want, or the career that we want, or creating a completely different life for ourselves, and believing that we're going to be more likely to take those steps and take those actions when we truly know our internal worth. And so I think this kind of came through as being something really important right now, because with so much change and maybe people's external reality, external experience is different to what it was before. And for me and many of the clients that I work with, it's that their external reality or experiences, their external body may be changing, maybe not what it was when they were an athlete or when they were going to the gym 6 times a week, or now that they're recovering from injury. And so if you place your worth on something outside of you, like your body or how much money you make or the relationship that you're in, and that changes, because these things will change throughout our lives, right? Whether we like it or not, our bodies are going to change. We're going to age. We're going to be in a relationship, maybe not in a relationship. And so when they change, if our worth is attached to that, then we'll really feel like we've lost, like I explained at the start with my story, like I felt this, I don't know who I am anymore. And that whole I am being attached to external physical appearance or external goals or accomplishments, then we feel like we've lost ourselves. And I'm kind of like, well, that's great. I did lose that part of myself. I did lose that attachment to who I am being my physical form or my external reality. So if you're someone who is, in that place of change, or your external reality is changing and it feels really confronting, obviously totally okay that it feels that way. But what are your internal qualities that you can reconnect back to ground your worth into? So that might be, like your ability to be a really good listener, or to have overcome challenges in your life, or to be someone who is open-minded, is, able to create change, and all of these different parts of you that, regardless of what happens, whether it's to your body or any other external circumstance, will always be there. And at the end of the day, something that, I'm really passionate about sharing is that we're all inherently worthy. We were born worthy. The fact that we are here on this planet at this time, at this moment in time, we are worthy. And it's just been our conditioning and our socialization and the messages that we've received, the experiences that we've had. Some of us might be really painful, but those are the things that slowly over time may take away from that, knowing that sense of that we are worthy. So I hope that helps.
I know, and I hope that it's deep. I hope that everybody listening really hears that message, right? Because it's so easy to repeat, like Pammy was saying, other people's thoughts about us or about what we've done, or about what we should have done in our lives. And I think that you bring up so many good points there. I did a video, which I won't elaborate on now, but if you haven't seen it, please go and check out my video. It's called You Are the CEO of Your Own Pie. And there's a story about taking my son to the bakery and a pie. And so check that out. And I did an activity, which this will just remind you, but it looks like this. And it's really about living with intention. And I think what you said, Sarah, it's so relevant, who we've always been, the label we wore, you were like triathlete, right? Or we don't have to always be that person. And sometimes life happens and we're not that person. Or maybe we make an empowered choice to consciously show up differently because it wasn't serving us, or it did, but now it's not. So I think it's, whenever you're watching this, it's such a great time to reconnect with how you want to feel, number one, and then how you want to show up, the energy you want to put out to the world. and who you want to be listening to and what you want to be absorbing into your life. So, I mean, my second tip really would probably be around in terms of daily habit. You guys know I love my essential oils. You mentioned compassion, Sarah. Magnolia is actually the oil of compassion. So if you feel like you're quite judgy to yourself, a lot of people are very judgy to themselves, right? Or to other people, other people will be judgmental towards other people. Then essential oils can be a very helpful tool to help you shift the way you're thinking and to acknowledge your emotions and process them instead of just keeping all the emotions inside, which often leads to health medical problems. All right, let's do the final round. I love this round so much. So this is called What's Cool About You? So this is a great chance to learn something a little bit new and different about our guests. And also, if you could share with us if there's anything specific coming up and how can we connect with you online. So Kamini, we'll go to you for What's Cool About You.
Oh, wow. What's not cool about me, Nat? I love dancing to Bollywood songs. I crank it up every once in a while. My kids call it cringy, but hey, I am
Cringy
Indian
is the
and
new
they're
cool.
half Indian, so get used to it. So yeah, and the way to connect with oh, and I also do enjoy eating curries with my fingers, although I get it everywhere, but that's another story. To connect with me, just connect with me on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I always believe that the more friends you have, the better life will be. And speaking of life, one of the things I'd like to also elaborate on is we forget that our lives are not a rehearsal. And one of the things for self-love is acknowledging that, this is it. Life is not a dress rehearsal.
Okay.
So this is the only life we have. Make the most of it. Be happy. Love yourself.
Indeed. Thank you. Okay, so we'll get your Facebook link and we'll put it for people to connect with you as well. Are you done, Kamini, with where to find you?
Thank you.
Oh, and you're on Instagram as well. And we'll put that up. Okay, Brian.
Find me on Facebook.
Brian, we'll go to you for your What's Cool About You and how can we connect?
Cool. Just like Kamini was saying, I think that everything about me is cool.
I love this self-love we're feeling. We're feeling the love, people.
I think that one thing that a lot of people, I think that, and this is something that I think that this is cool because most people that know me for different aspects of me. Nobody really knows all of me. A lot of people think that I'm really chill guy and really calm and relaxed, but at the same time, that's a part of me. I love dancing. I love adventure. I love traveling. I love actually being open to learn in different ways. I'm not stuck with anything. If there's a different culture, a different perspective, I'm open to that. And actually, something that I believe that it's really cool is I don't really care what people say to make me change who I am.
That is very cool.
I care about people and I will listen, but I won't allow people's projections or people's perspectives to change me if that doesn't fit with who I think that I am. And in terms of connecting with me, a lot of different ways. Facebook, Instagram, my website, just with my name, Brian Berneman, or through Conscious Action, and that is Conscious Action NZ, or through You Being You, so youbeingyou.org. So a lot of different places to find me.
What's the Conscious Action? Can you elaborate on that a little?
Conscious Action, yeah. So I studied Conscious Action almost 3 years ago because I noticed that there was a space that was missing connection and actually going deeper into creating more awareness. And once awareness was there about certain topics, to actually put them into action. So especially I was seeing that in the sustainability and more conscious living aspect of it. And for the last few years now, conscious action has been about creating spaces, gathering events on different topics about well-being, spirituality, sustainability, working, finding your why, any topic really. And we try to raise awareness of that topic. We get guest speakers sometimes, or we show documentaries, and then actually having a conversation around it. Because a lot of these topics sometimes, especially things like climate change, can be quite daunting. And what we want to do is we want to empower people and inspire people to take action and taking responsibility for our place in that and not leaving to someone else will do that. What is my role in all of this? So I'm really excited that hopefully soon we are able to start with in-person events again and to be able to get back into that connection space.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll include all the links, you guys, in the show notes coming up. All right, Sarah, what's cool about you? How can we find you online?
Awesome. What's cool about me? I'm a bit of a, it's like those paradoxes, I guess, Brian was talking about. I can be very like loving, level 3 life, homebody, need to see many people, don't need to talk to many people, just do my little thing, walk on the beach. And then I can also have this other part of me that's like last minute, spontaneous, want to go and do all the things. So 2 years ago, I had a 3-month trip planned through Central America, ended up in Lake Atitlan in Guatemala in a meditation center, Las Piramidas, and decided to cancel my flight home and ended up being away for 9 months. So I guess, yeah, the love of travel, the love of learning new cultures and open-mindedness, experiencing different tools and modalities and healing and really learning from ancient wisdom and culture that, is so powerful. So that's a bit of me. And you can find me, connect with me, add me as a friend on Facebook. My Instagram is sarahmenlove.health. Do a lot over there. And I've got a private Facebook community, which I love engaging in, run lots of free challenges. I've got free video series and stuff in there. So maybe I'll share a link with you, Nat. You can pop that in the show notes. That's a good place to just join my community and get a little bit more engagement. And obviously I also coach one-on-one. So if anyone wants to connect with me, I offer a complimentary call. If you want to explore, your own relationship with your body, with yourself, reconnecting back to those deeper parts of yourself, more than happy to offer that as well.
Yeah, listening to what you guys are talking about and all the experience that you're bringing, I am actually excited for this new phase of life that we're entering, and people just looking at life differently, taking time for themselves, more self-love. And also, like Brian was saying, I often say, care what you think more. And what that means is, of course, I care what everyone else thinks, but I actually care what I think more. And I'm raising my kids with that same philosophy to really stand. And that comes back to where we started this conversation today with Kamini as a young girl growing up in India. She probably was like, I'm not allowed to think what I think because I have to behave this way and act that way. And I feel like if everyone, gave themselves permission and we gave each other permission and we didn't do the judgy thing to really just to expand and to, have different perspectives, but to also stand strong in what we do believe. So I hope you all have learned something today. Thank you so much for joining me, my beautiful guests. So good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. No problem. I'm going to share with you guys what's coming up on the next coming up episodes, and then you guys, I'll update the information so you guys can get in touch as well. So coming up later this week. So this theme this week obviously is mindfulness and self-love, and then the second show I'm doing on Thursday is called Pivoting Your Life and Business and Creating Your New Normal. So it's really an opportunity. I think anytime you can create your new normal, like really, we don't have to wait for a monumental life event personally, but often it does take that for human nature to actually kick into action and things. But so it's really about actually pivoting your life, your business. I've got Kath Vincent from Wake Up Your Wow. I've got Natalie Toloff, who is very well known for helping women to take imperfect action. And I've also got my amazing friend who I've known since Camp Tawingo, which is when I was like 14 years old back in Canada. And now he's like a marketing guru in Canada. So he's coming on my show. He's from BIYF Marketing. You're going to find out what that means. It's a little bit shocking on Thursday. So that's coming off on Thursday. And last week I told you about my networking event. I did an online event last week, the first one ever online. And it was pretty cool. We did Zoom breakout rooms. So if you haven't tried breakout rooms in Zoom, it's a pretty cool feature. If you're not connecting in person, it's a really great way to allow for conversation in a smaller groups when you're trying to meet also as a big group. So that's what's coming up. It's so amazing to spend time with you guys today. Please do check out the other episodes. And until next time, this is your host, Natalie Cutler-Welsh, saying, remember to up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen. Thanks, guys. See you.